Hello there, viewers. It's me, Quitte Davis, or Tay for short, if you find that easier. I am the founder, as you might have guessed, of Quitte's Productions. The what's the word I'm looking for? The well, obviously the title of this YouTube channel, the name of the YouTube channel, but the company that I represent is for animated series, theatrical films, and video games. Or at least I upload storyboards and concept art for them. And I admit that in recent times, I think early to mid spring and around summer, like more and more, I started I wouldn't really say advertising, but like playing around with AI and like um, basically toying around with it. I never really intended to use AI for like my actual storyboards, concept art stuff. It's more me just doing this for fun. I guess you could call it advertising, but I don't really intend to like use AI as a tool for my work. I have made songs to promote my work, I guess, but that wasn't really anything I really intend to sell. I'm not gonna lie to you viewers though, I have used instrumentals from those AI songs that I've generated before. I to be clear, in the description, like in the videos of those songs, I have made clear that I did use AI, and then I have, and then I put that in the description. I'm sure, and I have used instrumentals in some of my videos based on those songs. But I never intended to really sell the AI songs as my own work. Though I basically I take credit for the fact that I wrote the songs, but the actual lyrics are sung, if you that's what you want to call it, are sung by AI. I personally cannot sing, and I'm honestly not gonna embarrass myself trying. That's why in fact, I'm so unmelodious with my voice that I'm not even gonna try voice acting, which is why none of my videos have audio. When I was younger, I used to try to um, upload videos of my cartoons and whatnot with like voice acting, but it was embarrassing looking back on it, so I deleted those videos. But well, that's not really what I came here to talk about today. Instead, I came here to react to the first three films of my Substance XY franchise. Before we get into the actual films, I want to make it clear that this will be like behind the scenes commentary. Um, I'm not sure if anyone's really interested, but just in case anyone is, I decided that this would be a fun thing to do in the meantime of while I'm working on current episodes of my productions. Substance XY, well, as it says here, believe it or not, aside from theatrical films and animated series, Substance XY is actually a video game franchise, considering that it began as a concept for a video game. And I guess to really show what Substance XY originally was, I guess before we get into the films, I'll go over what the idea for Substance XY actually looked like. So originally, Substance XY was called Prowlers. Oh no, excuse me, it was called Collision, but then it was later changed to Prowlers. But overall, Substance XY was always intended to be a video game. Also, originally, Substance SY was not under Interaction. It was under Hush Puppy Games. Later, given the Interaction. So originally, McGuffin, who is more or less the protagonist of Substance SY, at least by now, McGuffin was originally a male character. And as you might have seen, she was originally very much different in design and pretty much every character in Substance SY was. See, oh, even Madame Prowler was originally designed differently, like way differently. In the later installments, I wanted her to be more transparent, more translucent, like more slimy or more parasitic, so like more like an alien. Because Substance that's why like originally they weren't really aliens; they were more like laboratory experiments gone horribly wrong. Eventually, I kind of like people just couldn't like really grasp like the full intent of what I was going for. So I just kind of start playing into the more extraterrestrial aspects of the franchise, and that's kind of how the whole sci-fi alien aspect of the franchise came to be. Mind you, this character 856 was never used again, except for like, I guess you could say he was used for Clint Hudson in the first Substance SY film, but of characters that were later used in Julia Stromakian. Mind you, I don't even own the physical copy of. Well, I can. Well, I honestly thought the video was over. I couldn't tell, but um, basically, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I don't even own the physical copy of this version of the. Basically, this is a beta, more or less, of what Substance SY Plan B, the first ever Substance SY, the first ever official Substance SY game. This is basically a beta for that, and yeah, basically Substance SY has always had like a raunchy humor to it. Um, yeah, I don't. I so what happened with the physical copy of the reason why I no longer have the physical copy of the original concept for Substance SY is because, or like some of my older cartoons, because I'm sure if you remember, I'm gonna get to this in the next video I do of behind the scenes. Um, I lost the first original copies of all of my work on the bus ride home one day, and I'm sure I still have the video of that, like when I addressed this before, but it was a very depressing situation to be in. I eventually did bounce back, of course, but at the time I didn't know what I was gonna do. But then eventually I saw it as a positive thing because it gave me inspiration to start over fresh and do better with my concept. Again, I wanted to show this as a way of introducing what the original concept for Substance That's Why is before we get into the films, which are basically like the first official Substance That's Why film. That's basically the official pilot for um. That's basically the official pilot for the official Substance That's Why franchise. As you can see here, this is a list of all the Substance That's Why games that I worked on over the years. See, there was Collisions slash Prowlers that we just covered. Then there's the original trilogy of Substance That's Why games, official Substance That's Why games, that I no longer claim as the official continuity because I don't know. Looking back on it, I never really enjoyed these. Like I thought they were fun at first, but then I realized that there were so many inconsistencies. Like for example, MacGuffin being switched to a female character in Condemned, and then in the Invasion, MacGuffin is nowhere to be seen at all. Because at the time, I thought it would be a cool idea to introduce Toxicity, or Agent 51, basically the female counterpart of Solid, Liquid, and Gas, aka Cyrus C, aka Agent 46, and basically I gave him a female counterpart, a partner, and MacGuffin basically disappeared, and basically I no longer claim the original trilogy to be canon. So because of that, I worked on Remasturbated, which is basically a more updated, official, and improved version of all three of the original trilogy of Substance Y games. This is where Remasturbated is where the original. I mean, Remasturbated is where we get both the official design of MacGuffin here, even though she's technically like, okay, yes, I admit that even aside from making AI songs, I have. Well, I already admitted I used AI to produce like to generate promotional images of my work. These are my own original characters. The only thing I don't claim is the backgrounds. But yeah, so MacGuffin is actually supposed to be like white or like very pale gray. Um, if I do make an AI image of her, it's always gonna generate her to be, well, it's usually gonna generate her to be pink for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why that is. But yeah, Remasturbated is where the official design of MacGuffin originates, as well as it's the official, like it's officially where Slime, it's officially where MacGuffin's big brother Slyman is introduced. After Remasturbated, I worked on Operation Hybrid, which is a video game that was worked on after the complete series was completed of Substance XYZ. This series introduces the hybrids, a group of characters that are they're basically half human, half prowler. They were introduced late into this Substance SY official continuity, and the series aired alongside the first season of Substance SY versus Central Justice. So to be very clear, Substance SYZ is going back to the roots of Substance SY with the raunchy humor and questionable visuals. I understand that not everyone's going to be a fan of the decisions I've made with Substance SY. Just to be clear, I don't encourage any of the actions that any of the villains in Substance SY like have done to other characters. It's all raunchy humor. It's not meant to be taken that seriously. Um, it's just adult humor, entertainment. But with Substance Y versus Central Justice, as weird as the concept for it is, it's meant to be more of a wholesome, child-friendly Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic. I am currently working on a second season. I already got started with the Most Dangerous Video Game, which is a recent upload of mine. It's on YouTube as we speak. But as far as the second season of Versus Central Justice, I'm currently working on that soon. So again, Substance SYZ is current. Substance SYZ aired alongside the first season of Versus Central Justice. And look, I even had a crossover between Julius Making and Substance SY 6 months ago. And with that being said, let's move on to the theatrical films. I have made two other films besides these two, but let's be honest, we didn't come here. Well, I didn't do all the. Excuse me. This is my. Well, I have made commentary videos like I think twice in the past, like a year or two ago, but this is the first time in a while that I've done like a. This is it's been a while since I've last done commentary, basically. Um, None of you viewers came here to hear about my other two films, or at least not today. Right now, you're here, from my understanding, to get behind the scenes insight of Substance SY. Even though we just went over the origins of Substance, well, the origins of the games in the series, I never really gave you the origins of the franchise concept as a whole, even though, well, I mean, I guess I kind of just went over like the humor, but the idea itself came from me wanting to make a sci-fi franchise, because at the time, like around the time I worked on Substance SY, um, I was working on Julia Stromeckian, and while there are sci-fi aspects in Julia Stromeckian, Julia is more of a fantasy franchise, I feel. Whereas with Substance SY, there's no question that it's sci-fi, at least from my understanding. So I wanted to make a show that, again, I didn't originally intend for the creatures in Substance SY to be considered aliens, but over time, people like the concept became more and more misconceptualized. So I just decided to play into the whole they're aliens aspect, and honestly, I feel like even though it's not really what I started out the franchise to be, it kind of just works. Again, McGuffin wasn't originally female. Simon wasn't really introduced until Remastered, and but overall, I feel like it works. I enjoy having McGuffin as a protagonist more or less. Um, we're gonna get into more as like we watch the film. So, without further ado, let's get into the Substance SY trilogy. And just to be clear, I am currently developing concepts for a fourth Substance SY film. So the first film is just Substance SY. The second film is 2.0. And the third film is 3000. It's basically, the whole 2.0 and 3000 thing, they're not really supposed to be like, the extra numbers and whatnot aren't supposed to be taken like that seriously. They're just like what I consider to be creative ways to like call it Substance SY2 or Substance SY3. But basically, there's Substance SY, Substance SY2, Substance SY3. I'm working on the fourth film. or at least I intend to, further down the line in the future. And spoiler alert, I intend for the fourth film to be the official finale of the whole entire franchise. So without further ado, let's get started with watching the official pilot for Substance Y. This has really gotten under my skin in the last few years. Like, please understand, I understand that Substance SY will not be favored among a lot of people. I understand that. But I can't tell you how many times I've shown my work to people who said they were into like adult humor and stuff like that. And even then, I understand, like, even then, that some people still won't like Substance. That's why I get that. But I can't tell you how many times people have went to this film knowing that there was raunchy humor, then like got very surprised that even after seeing this warning discretion, people were just like, I can't believe you put that in this film. It's like I literally gave a warning. I put a rated R. Like I think people say that this film would actually be rated X, but I put a rated R hashtag over my work. I don't know how clear I needed to be that if you're not into this sort of thing, don't watch. But and granted, I did tone down the humor Substance that's why over time, mostly, especially with versus Central Justice, since again that's supposed to be like a Saturday morning cartoon aspect. I mean, interpretation of Substance Y, and again, I think that could be considered a weird choice for a franchise that originated as something adult humor wise, but I just find it so annoying how people just literally took this warning sign with a grain of salt. Well, some people did, but yeah. This is one of the earlier interpretations of my logo. Right, I mean, as of today, I now don't even use my face in the logo anymore. For the eye, I now just use the giant pencil, which is what the production part of my logo was originally going to be. Well, what it was. Um, I decided to take my face out of the logo, and then I decided to turn those lines in the background into a hexagon. Well, it's supposed to be like a gem with a base under it, so it's the gem holding like my logo. Like it's supposed to be like a fancy uh, an abstract interpretation of my name with production combined with productions, and the base of the gym is like it says located in Charlotte, North Carolina, because my my goal is to become Charlotte, North Carolina. Like I wouldn't like I don't know if there's been like theatrical films worked on or theatrical production studios worked on in North Carolina at all. I'm not exactly sure. I gotta look that up. But my goal is to become specifically Charlotte, North Carolina's first ever animation studio, but North Carolina's first animation studio in general. If there hasn't been any in the past, that is. Before we continue, I want to make it clear the written out parts of the Substance That's Why films, as well as any film I work on at all, the written out parts are supposed to be the written out parts are supposed to represent live action with live action actors and whatnot, and the storyboarded parts are supposed to represent the animation. Again, the music I felt was supposed to convey that this was like a mystery sci-fi thriller, like an action movie. I originally considered putting MacGuffin in this film, but then I just didn't think it would have worked very well. Yeah, no, it wouldn't have because the humor just doesn't fit MacGuffin's more lighthearted tone. Just a heads up, I will not be cutting out any of the raunchy humor. See, even the music sounds like an extraterrestrial invasion. Also, that is in fact what Dr. Potavsky looks like as a human, or as her face. I'm not gonna lie to you viewers, I had a lot of fun writing this script. And if anyone's curious, this does in fact take place in the same timeline on the same planet as Julia Stramikian, but on a different continent, or as I like to call them, on the Atomicon sectors. The first ever raunchy scene. Lust is a character that I worked on in the second film I remember, but I don't think I've brought her back since. Nor do I think I think I might bring her back one day, but I don't know if I want. Like, I don't know. I haven't been given a reason to so far. Someone once asked me, like, I think last year, what music I use for my videos. I use basically any music that isn't copyrighted from any, like, film, series, or video game. For Substance XY, I use what I think fits the vibe of action music, action adventure music, sci-fi music, obviously, and techno music in general. For Julia Shulmakian, I use whatever sounds adventurous, fantastical, like whimsical, magical. Like, I think you'll, like, every now and then I'll use, like, a techno sci-fi vibe in Julia Shulmakian if it calls for it. But I think if you watch any of my videos, whether it's Substance Y or Julia Shulmakian, or even Go For It, which I feel like has more like a comedic, kind of like silly, wacky, slapstick kind of vibe, I think you'll notice a difference between all of my productions, like, and what music I use. Like, obviously, each production has its own, like, genre that I think is very clear throughout. But you'll notice I use different music overall through all of my productions. Just making sure I'm still recording. So the whole toxic waste thing, anyway, like, for those who don't know, I'm sure you've seen by now, Substance SY is basically sperm that has been mutated into becoming a virus that transforms its host into monsters. So the whole radiation thing, well, I'm not exactly sure how this works, but I'm pretty sure radiation kills. Well, obviously radiation kills cells. I'm not exactly sure how this would work in real life, but Basically, the idea was if radiation kills cells, since the creatures of substance as Y are basically sperm monsters, why not have their arch nemesis be a creature that uses toxic waste like radiation, like radioactive sludge, to battle them? In substance as Y, I refer to this radioactive sludge as hazmat juice, hazardous material juice. Basically, radioactive monsters versus sperm monsters. Something that I found really fun was because these creatures aren't like really human anymore, or it was for those who were human. I find it fun being able like to contort their bodies into like different shapes and forms. Even with solid liquid and gas, I found it fun to like interpret their bodies in the way that I did. Mind you, this is the first ever theatrical film I've ever written for. I'm sure I could have done like way better, but overall, I'm happy with how it turned out. Happy enough. Again, I don't think McGuffin would have fit into this storyline to begin with. Just to be clear, I did work on the original trilogy of Substance Y games like immediately after working on this film, and maybe that's why they didn't do so well. I kind of just crammed ideas together and without much thought. I worked on Remasturbated, I think, the next year, a few months to the next year later, and I think Remasturbated was much better. Waiting on the video to change so that we can move on to Substance Y2. Which, I'm literally gonna come right out and say it. I am not, like, even though it's my own work, I do not like 2.0. There's a way that I wrote it that I kind of regret because I feel like, I mean, you're gonna see. I'll get to it when we get to it. Just gonna skip. Even though this film isn't really as raunchy as the last film, I chose to give a warning discretion anyway. Like originally, this video had the rated R hashtag and not safe for work hashtag, but I took the rated R and not safe for work hashtag off because I just felt like I didn't need it. But it was there originally. Alright, this is when I started updating my logo at the time. Also, notice how I started becoming a little. Well, I personally feel like I got a little more creative with how I introduced the logos and whatnot. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of got inspired by how Disney and well, not just Disney, obviously, but the way that some movie companies like do like a special thing with their logos, like that fits the movie's theme. For me, with the Substance Y films, I try to go for a sci-fi vibe. Like the original film started off with just like biology, like the DNA strands. With this, I chose outer space to play because this was around a time where people kept assuming that because this came out after this film was made after Remasturbated, so this was around the time where everyone was assuming that the aliens the alien they're pronounced aliens, but there's a way I spelled that's like it's take the L out of ginger ale and then put take the L out of ginger ale, put a dash, and then put like don't space it out, but put like YINS at the dash. So aliens. I think you'll see, but basically, I did that on purpose because I wanted it to seem like cute, like a cute, silly interpretation of saying aliens. But basically, this was made after Remastered, and this is the first official debut of Mick Guffin as a protagonist with her alien buddies, basically. So I figured why not play into the outer space aspect. I recently talked with a friend about the Grab and Buy. It's basically like a mall, but mostly a grocery store. We talked about why is the Grab and Buy not a real place. Also, this is basically even though this film is canon to the official continuity, this is actually like inaccurate to the lore of Suicide That's Why because I'm as a creator, I am now confirming that no okay. So there's four strands of Suicide That's Why. There's the Prowler DNA strand. There's the Raging Hormone. There's the Prowler gene, and then there's hybrid DNA, the hybrid strand. Lust is part of Prowler DNA, and Kinky here is part of the Prowler gene. Neither of these two should be able to morph into humans and morph back. Only hybrids can do this. I didn't consider. I just realized something actually. Like, I'm the creator, and I just realized what I did here. Under the mall capacity, I put 3,000, which I don't know if you viewers would consider that to be like a foreshadowing. Like, because we're just not talking about the hybrids, but I think it's kind of weird how, even as a creator, I put 3,000, and then these two are morphing into humans. Well, morphing from humans to aliens. Knowing what we know about the hybrids. Fun coincidence, I think. I honestly never caught that. So there's a bit of raunchy humor here. But I don't think it's anywhere near as like in your face about it as the first Suicide That's Why film was. I showed this film to someone once, and she said, "Dang, not the grocery store," and I was like, "Dang." So this is where I officially improved. Again, this came out after Remastered, which is why I improved the character designs. But yeah, this is Solid Liquid and Gas's more like official design. They look more human with a touch of mutant, as they're not aliens, but they're mutants because of the radiation. This is where I started playing around with the theremin things in this franchise more. And I think it plays off well. I can't tell you how many people that did not understand the whole broken news thing. Because, breaking news, it's a stupid joke. There's a lot of stupid jokes in my franchises and whatnot, my predictions. At least one person actually, legitimately questioned it. He's like, he tried to, be like, I don't know what you were thinking when you made it. I'm like, it's a stupid joke, obviously, but I'm not trying to say it's not a stupid joke, but it's like, come on, man. Like, how did you not get that? Again, just a reminder, the written out parts of the films I write are live action, and the storyboard parts represent animated scenes. Though, to be clear, I honestly don't think I needed to do live action for this film. I think you're going to see more and more that the film becomes more and more animated instead of live action. So the city of Spandex and Spandex, it's not, excuse me, Spandex University. I mean, they are in fact adult humor, like as a nod to the fact that Simpsons that's why it has raunchy humor. And yes, these are in fact the human designs of what Professor X, who's now Professor X, and Dr. Y. This is what they look like as humans, but now they're transforming permanently into aliens. So for Prowler DNA, you're basically like a not really green, but like a slimy, like pale gray alien parasite. With raging hormone, you're like a bright orange alien parasite who has like so basically Prowler DNA. You're able to infect people, like you're like a alien parasite. With Prowler DNA, oh yeah, so with Prowler DNA, you can like shapeshift into different forms as you saw in the first film. The raging hormone, you're basically still an alien parasite, except the only shapes you can morph into are like fire based stuff. Like I think you'll see later on in the film with the Prowler gene, which is what Professor S is representing here. You're gonna see that he's more like a ghost, except he's like he's an alien, but he has more like paranormal powers. And with hybrids, you're gonna see in the next film, they're more mutant, sort of like they're more like animal like they're half human, half prowler, but their powers are more like geared towards like animal abilities. I think you're gonna see. I think anyone who saw like something XYZ might have kind of got that vibe that they're more like animalistic, like more like beastly. So they're half human, half prowler, but they're more like beastly. Whereas with the prowlers, they're beastly, but like they're more parasitic with their beastliness. With the hybrids, it's more like they're half human, half mutant, basically. I chose not to use Mount Prowler, Dr. Pataski's evil alter ego. Well, she's always been evil, but and I decided not to put her in the prototype in this. She's Mount Prowler. Spoiler alert is in this film, but she's not the main villain. I chose to do that because I figured each of the films needed their own specific villains, just to keep the ideas fresh. Here we go. So I think I could have done better with the designs. This is where McGuffin, Slyman, Grumpy, Screwball, and the Prowler guys were officially introduced as protagonists in the franchise. I introduced McGuffin and Slyman as characters in like their official character designs and remastered, and they were playable to an extent. But this is where they were officially like protagonists from the Central Justice Agency. Oh, by the way, I literally never um I never covered this like up until this point. The Central Justice Agency is Atomicon's because Atomicon is basically like a futuristic version of Earth, but in a parallel dimension. So basically, on the Atomicon, I'm sure you've noticed by now, the animals and creatures overall on the Atomicon are usually like they're basically like what you will find on Earth, but somewhat different. Like Shermicans are basically like wildcats with bat wings, but of course they don't know what cats are on the Atomicon. There are cats on the Atomicon, but Shermicans are not really like they are cats in our world as we might have perceived them to be, but they're not cats on the Atomicon. Basically, like they have cat-like characteristics though, and there are times where they act like cats, but Shermicans, for example, are not considered like cats. And on Atomicon, animals that you might consider to be what we perceive them to be on Earth, they're called something different on Atomicon. So wildcats have bat wings on Atomicon, and they're called Shermicans. There's beaver bears, like half beaver, half bears. For example, again, like Gopher Groundhog, he's a groundhog named Gopher. So there are like regular animals here and there, but like for the most part, Atomicon is basically like a more warped version of Earth, like a more futuristic, more surreal version of Earth. I mean, you have a sun that wears shades and has clouds with faces in this world, so take that as you will. Um, with Atomicon, their version of like the CIA Area 51 is Central Justice, the Central Justice headquarters. And so with Substance Y, I decided, because if I'm gonna play into the whole like the creatures from Substance Y are now aliens, why not have them like, I mean, Central Justice has always technically been in the franchise, technically, even from the first incarnation of the franchise, Collision slash Prowlers. Um, Central Justice has always been there, but I figured if I'm gonna play into this alien thing, I might as well utilize the aliens by having them work for the government in the sense of, I think, as secret agents who like they're good aliens who battle evil aliens, which is basically what Substance SY versus Central Justice is about. They're good aliens battling evil aliens as a way of earning their keep at Central Justice headquarters, so they don't get sent to Paradise, which is basically like, so Paradise, a play on words of Prowler and Paradise. It's basically like, if you ever seen Butch Hartman's Danny Phantom on Nickelodeon. Um, it's basically like the Ghost Zone except for like evil alien parasites. And so in this world, it's basically like a prison. Like it's even though it's called like, even though it's a play on Prowler in Paradise, it's not really a paradise. It's basically like where the evil members of Substance Y are sent at a prison, like a pocket dimension, and of course they're gonna keep getting out every time they get a chance to, and that's what the Central Justice Agency is here for. I mean, there's other like things that Central Justice does that I'm gonna get to in a second, but basically like the Paradise is basically like where they send the evil aliens. And so the concept of Central Justice as a whole is that they so basically they're afraid of what Cyrus Wing bothering the Triple B two said. So because I feel like this analogy was perfect because this agency, they the Central Justice doesn't go after like the common drugs like bank robbery or even like serial killers. They go after Super Justice, which the evil members of Central Squad that they fight. They go after like villains like Professor Quill, do even polemical ways to try and use this program. We'll get that like in a separate video. But for example, but this is to get concept of Super Justice, you have to get first. They ain't got this. Or even those that set up. In her official design, you know, the M shaped bangs that she has, the wavy M shaped bangs that she has on her head. We're getting to the part where I started to like not like my own film that I mentioned earlier. Oops. I'll be right back. That was embarrassing. This is where I started to not like my own film. I I highly regret making Cyrus an asshole. The way he treats the aliens because he got in trouble for his own mistake. For not understanding that with each new strand of substance, that's why the villains get stronger. Because viruses adapt. As far as my understanding of viruses goes, basically because of Cyrus and again, I'm the creator of this franchise. Because of Cyrus, the aliens almost die by getting sent to paradise where villains want to kill them. And yeah, I showed this film to people and they didn't like the scene either. And again, as a creator, I don't really like the scene. I did this as because I'm sure we've all seen the third act breakup of characters in films. I mean, even the music right here, it's supposed to convey that this is like a second to third act breakup, and I guess you could say it works for what it's trying to do, but it just like it ruins Cyrus's character. And again, the aliens, they were just trying to help, and now they could have died. So basically, I feel like this was like a character assassination of Cyrus. So the idea of these villains is that they wanted to extract people's innocence, which is basically like, in substance, that's why lore is basically like their souls. Don't worry, they were only going after adults, like college students. They weren't doing anything beyond adults. But also, yeah, I didn't think I went about the execution of these villains very well, so that's another flaw of this film. Oh yeah, the scene where Cyrus tries to flirt with toxicity, and her actual human name is Brandy. Brandy with an I. But yeah, she turns him down because she's disgusted with how he acted towards aliens. Otherwise, I'm sure we all guessed that she would have gone out with him. See, that's supposed to be like their innocence or souls getting extracted. If you're wondering what the 50-yard mark there is, it's supposed to be like a football field. Another thing that isn't really explained, like, I later on, like, I think established that these villains know Dr. Pataski and her husband, but I never really explained it here that how they know. Because we seen the Prowler symbol, so it's like you might be wondering, how do they know Dr. Pataski? It's because they were secretly developing their own strand of virus. Like, they were gonna join the original villains in the original film, but they never, after realizing that their partners were captured, they hid while Dr. Pataski and her husband were arrested, basically. And again, Mount Prowler is in this film, but she's not really a main villain, per se. So 46 is here to apologize to McGuffin and her friends to get them back home. Also, you might have noticed this is where the film starts to become more and more lighthearted, or at least that was the intention. Because this is, so the first film is the official pilot for the franchise is like soft reboot. This is more or less the official pilot for Versus Central Justice. The animated series for McGuffin and her friends. That black slime, that grayish black slime, is what Professor X uses. I I showed my sister this. I think she said she likes the franchise enough. I told her I feel like my Substance Wife's franchise. I mean, I'm not trying to compare myself to Butch Hartman, but I told her like I was inspired by Butch Hartman. I consider it to be like a more extraterrestrial version of it. That's not really to compare to Butch Hartman's work because I know I'm pretty sure I can never compare, but that's who I was inspired by. So the commander in chief were captured, and now it's up to the heroes to save the day. I will say, even though I'm not really a fan of this film because of what it does to Cyrus, I like this climax enough. So as mentioned before, with the raging hormone, they can morph into different shapes too, but more like fire based. Like with Dr. Y, she can morph into a giant fireball by absorbing enough air to transform into to spin into a fireball. So they tricked her into ramming into her own machine, thereby freeing all the innocents. And now the aliens are now recognized as heroes. And because he saved her life, as well as proved that he's not really an asshole, he was just upset about getting in trouble for not doing his job correctly. Brandy took Cyrus out on the date that they were talking about earlier. Except now he has to go back to work because more aliens have shown up. Again, this is where I started to really utilize Theramin's things. Because you know that alien like extraterrestrial. I did that terribly. Yeah, that sound, the warbling music that indicates that like aliens are around or something supernatural. Basically, I know fantasy uses it too at times, but I hear it mostly in like sci-fi or supernatural kind of stuff, like horror, mystery stuff. So yes, my favorite of the so that's why film trilogy so far. Well, again, I'm playing a fourth film, so it will be a quadrilogy soon, but hopefully. But oh yeah, by the way, this is my official. Like when I work on films, this is meant to be my official. Um, like you know how Disney has its own unique theme for its films, like its logo, Disney logo, and how Warner Bros has its own unique theme for its Warner Bros logo, film logos. This is mine for Quintet Productions. So this is the first film I ever worked on that. Oh, actually, no. I think I used it for Julian the Power Strumeckian, which I think I made before this. So I was going to say I think this is the first film that introduces the song. But no, Julian the Power Strumeckian was the first. If you took the last two films were sci-fi, I think this one really homes in the message. Also, remember how I said I like how Disney and Warner Brothers sometimes does like special things with the logo? I think I did that with the screen there, the animation station screen. So the first film was about defeating the Prowlers. The second film was about defeating the Raging Hormone and the Poltergeist Gene. This film is about defeating the hybrids. I won't spoil what the fourth film will be about, but this is in fact my favorite of the films, mainly because I feel like the first film was more about seeing how powerful the aliens are. The second film was more about the mutants having to save the day. This one I feel focuses more on the aliens, the good aliens. But more so, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. I'm not gonna lie, I was kinda, sort of, if you haven't noticed, inspired by the original introduction for the first Lilo and Stitch film. No, an alien escaping and they're going after it, and then the logo eventually starts. The, the title of the film eventually shows up. I mean, I figure because, Lilo and Stitch is technically a sci-fi film, I should figure, as long as I don't outright steal the concept of what Substance That's Why, I mean, of what Lilo and Stitch did, I could work on it for Substance That's Why. I had to skip a little because it was taking a little while. This is the first Substance SY theatrical film that has Captain Trovius, which is it's supposed to be like an extraterrestrial play on Captain Obvious, but with Tro at the beginning, and you take the B out of it, so it's obvious, but I call him Trovius. He's basically Madame Prowler's henchman, like her mercenary she sends to destroy the aliens. McGuffin and her friends specifically. But don't worry, he's more like a Saturday morning cartoon villain, which is what I intended for him because I wanted, because Madame Prowler is more like a villain in the films. With Trovius, he's the villain in the series because he's more like not lighthearted, I wouldn't say, but he's more like not taken as seriously. I put him in this film because I figured, hey, why not? Also, yes, that is in fact the same lady from the last film. In Versus Central Justice, I gave the Prowler guys in the first season. I gave the Prowler guys his own like body to possess. Like it's not really a body. Like it's a skeleton he found at costume shop. It's a fake skeleton, and that sleeves Captain Trump's this right hand alien or right tentacle alien, and that's their minions who are also villains from the evil alien side of things. I had a lot of fun working on this scene, as you might have noticed. I am a huge fan of anything like sci-fi, like anything with aliens, scientists, whether those scientists are good or evil, and futuristic technology. Like sci-fi, like I love fantasy, like Julia Schumacher, for example. I love working on Julia Schumacher. But with such as why, like that's sci-fi is my favorite genre. Fantasy comes second, and then like sitcoms, like comedies and stuff like that. That's third. So dinosaur is so Simpleton. Even though he looks like he could be a prowler, he's technically still a hybrid. Except now he has the powers of a prowler, I guess, because he ripped off his human flesh. And the he did this in the other series I did for Simpsons. That's why he is still a hybrid, but so basically he's basically Z's sidekick now. With Z, I wanted her to be. She was originally going to be just pure evil, like MacGuffin's arch nemesis. Well, aside from Captain Trophy, that is. But as you're going to see, I decided to tone her down too. I figured, even though the other hybrids are evil, why not have at least two, like Z and Simpleton, who are at least good? Because, I mean, I figured, why not have hybrids, at least two hybrids on the team for Central Justice? So, because the hybrids are still technically human, they figured it would be easier to torture information out of the hybrids by putting them in a freezer. Since because the parasitic part of them will keep them alive anyway. I'm not exactly sure how accurate that is to science, but oh yeah, this isn't in fact a Julia Strumbeck cameo. That robot is meant to be like a white blood cell, or is it red blood cell or white blood cell? I keep forgetting. But he's basically like a robot version of that, and so he's looking for like any alien parasites on the Automacon so he can arrest them. Because Julie transformed from human to Shremican or vice versa, he thought she was Z the hybrid. I know it's a corny joke, but I figured because Julie and Z are somewhat similar in this aspect, I figured why not go for it. See, the Prowler guys does actually leave his body, I guess if you want to call it that. Also, the aliens do in fact have their own specific pod outside of Paradise in the Central Justice headquarters because they're good aliens, so they have their own like room. Remember how I said on the Automacon there are specific creatures that like are called specific things? That also goes for some locations like Mount Fraser is obviously Automacon's version of Mount Everest. The Blend Canyon is obviously the Grand Canyon on Automacon. And Alleyway, as you might have guessed by this image, like the holding torch it with the city in the background. The alleyway is New York City's atomic version of New York City. I don't know what you would oh yeah, Central Justice Headquarters, basically Area 51. I don't know what you would consider Stromic on Atomic on the B in real life, like on Earth. Also, remember how I said I have used instrumentals from the AI, the songs I generate with AI. This is an instrumental of McGuffin, like one McGuffin, two McGuffin. That I uploaded recently, well, a few months ago on YouTube under the Substance SY complete franchise playlist. This is an instrumental for that. Also, McGuffin is riding a extraterrestrial scooter with the extraterrestrial helmet on. If you haven't noticed, I'm not exactly sure if I want to bring it back. I don't really think it looks that great, honestly. But plus, it's not like she really needs it if she could fly. See, she has two different forms. So basically, with McGuffin's powers, which I introduced in the very first episode versus Central Genesis, McGuffin is basically like she basically has the powers of solid, liquid, and gas, like Cyrus City's powers, but except more extraterrestrial. And I honestly feel like MacGuffin fits the concept of these like powers well more than Cyrus does. Because with MacGuffin, with Substance why it makes some more sense. I feel with Cyrus, it's more of a stretch. Like yes, he's a mutant, but it's not like his. I just don't think it makes. I just don't think it makes more any sense. I think MacGuffin doing the powers makes more sense than I think it works well. My apologies. I just feel like with scenes that take a little too long to get to the next scene, I just feel like why not just skip ahead? Just to save time on the video. So this is where I started using more light-hearted songs that I feel fits the sci-fi genre, such as like light-hearted upbeat songs. Well, I don't think it's the first time, but I feel like it works for this film. Again, as I said, I feel like this film is more focused on the aliens than the humans, which I feel like works for this film. Um, I also feel like this is more of a MacGuffin's movie than it is Substance Y. Like, it is Substance Y, obviously. I don't think there's any denying that. But I feel like this is more MacGuffin and Z's movie, if anything. Yeah, I try to write humor every now and then. Doesn't always work. Oh yeah, by the way, I think this is Toxicity's only appearance in the film. We're getting to my favorite scene, Medical Land. Another sci-fi film that had an amusement park chapter or scene is Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius from 2001, Retroland. That has been seen in the franchise overall in Jimmy Neutron as well, but yeah, I have been inspired by other sci-fi films when working on this film, and since that's why as a whole, um, Medical Land is basically a biological. Me- Medical Land is basically like a biological amusement park, a biologically themed amusement park. See, like with Pillium in the Hall of X-rays. This was such a fun scene to work on. Like Papa's Corns. It's not really supposed to like disgusting. Like, it has a weird name, but it's basically like a popcorn stand. And Splice Cream because of biology, and it's an ice cream stand, and there's Fizzy Fountain, which I don't think has anything to do with like biology, of course, but fizz. And, there was gonna be another stand called Carbon Candy, carbohydrates, carbon candy. The symbols on our hats, it's supposed to be like a pill. And yes, that white blood cell robot didn't like really die. Again, I start using more lighthearted music that I felt was like fun and more energetic. That I feel fits MacGuffin and her theme of being more lighthearted and wholesome. Oh yeah, the immunizer. Basically like a ride through. It basically represents a ride through the digestive system, not literally, but like the theme of it is, and you're like riding on like these boats that are shaped like red blood cells or white blood cells. The thing is, Z used a hybrid chip. Watch Substance XYZ, the series, to understand what hybrid chips are. But she upgrades the bow of the the white blood cell ride. She upgrades it to become more extraterrestrial like, to turn into a ship. You'll see. It was taking a little too long to get to that, but basically she turns into a ship and then she officially destroys the robot and blasts off. Not into space, but like further across the Telecon. The reinforced sector, which is where the hybrid strand originated. I'm not gonna spoil what happened, but if you want to figure it out, watch Substance XYZ if you want to. Just fair warning. While versus Central Justice is the more lighthearted, the not inappropriate version of not inappropriate series, Substance XYZ is raunchy and has rated R and not safe for work humor and visuals. I guess you could call this like a third act breakup, but I decided not to like. I don't think it's as unlikable as the one in the second film. I think it works better here, especially because this time around it's actually been earned more so. I feel. That's the hybrid sphere. Yeah, I think in order to understand the lore of the Substance XY 3000 or Substance XY 3, you have to watch Substance XY Z. Hold up. Did I miss a scene when I worked on this or when I uploaded this the first time? I probably did, but either way, it is. Basically, Z is being told that she was only a pawn in the grand scheme of things with the hybrids, and now McGuffin uses this as an opportunity to get Z and Simpleton on the good side of the tracks by telling Z that there's a better way, basically. Also, yes, so Z and Simpleton refer to McGuffin as Mac. I thought it'd be like a cute nickname. So again, I think this third act breakup is a lot more earned than the last film, which is why I think it works better because it's not, and plus it's not too harsh. Well, I mean, the hybrids were obviously horrible to Z. In fact, not to spoil it, but I think it was kind of foreshadowed. I'm not gonna spoil when it was, but I think it was kind of like foreshadowed somewhere along the lines of the hybrid arc. If you want to check that out, the hybrid arc of Substance X Y. But I feel like here it works because it was actually earned. There was actual development, whereas when there was a second and third act breakup in 2.0, it just fell flat. So this is the film's climax where Z and Simpleton, or mostly Z, helps MacGuffin save the world. See, the hybrid's plan was basically collide have the hybrid sphere collide with Automicon. I was about to say Earth, but collide with Automicon, basically like wiping out most life on Automicon, but any survivors would because there will be DNA contained in the blast. I know it sounds like some really far-fetched sci-fi mumbo jumbo, but basically the blast would be it would contain hybrid DNA, and anyone who didn't die in the collision would basically be mutated into a hybrid and then forced to join the hybrids or die. So basically, the hybrids wanted to take over the world with Armageddon, basically. But Slimer uses his weird doohickey here which is basically like a teleporter, to transport the hybrid sphere and all the evil hybrids on it, because Z, Simpleton, and MacGuffin basically made it back to Automicon safely. The hybrids are now being transported to Paradise. More lighthearted techno music. So yeah, Z and Simpleton are now part of the aliens. I didn't make that sound weird, but basically they're part of MacGuffin's specific team, crack team, like a team of like a super team, and they work for Central Justice to fight evil aliens. This is a sort of a cliffhanger, not really, because it is the actual climax of the film, but it's more like a cliffhanger of what happened to the hybrids. I'm not gonna answer that in this video. I'm not gonna spoil it, but keep watching Substance Y versus Justice to figure out, as well as keep tuning into Substance Y in general. This is my way of like saying the end or see it like in Julia Showmaking. So this has been wow wait. So that was most of the lore for Substance XY. And I know excuse me. I know it's not perfect. I'm very aware of that it's flawed. I'm not proud of those flaws, but I embrace them because I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like I can do much better too. I'm still learning. I'm only 22. I'm getting. I think this franchise overall is getting better. I am working on the second season of Substance SY versus Central Justice. Um, with the first Substance SY film, I I wanted it to be like I again, as I stated before at the beginning of this video, the Substance Y is mostly for most part a video game franchise because it started out as a concept for a video game. But I can understand how some people wouldn't know that. Um, even though I officially kicked off the franchise with officially a film, the film is even though I kicked off the franchise with a film, so that's why Plan B, which was made afterwards, is basically like what the beta for the franchise would have been anyway. So I feel like the first film, even with its raunchy humor, basically got the point across of what Substance Y is. 2.0, I feel like was my least favorite of the films because, again, like even as a creator, I feel like that second to third act breakup was what assassinated Cyrus's character. He did apologize, so let's give him that. I feel, but I feel like that was when he basically like surrendered his rights as protagonist to McGuffin because like I'm not trying to like I guess you could call McGuffin Mary Sue, but I feel like McGuffin's wholesome personality is it clashes with the edgy humor of Substance Y, but in a way I feel like that's kind of a good thing because it shows that even though like Substance Y is known for like the evil aliens, not all members of Substance Y are evil. And for those of you wondering why McGuffin and her friends are not evil, it's because they have a defect in their genetic code. I know it's again far-fetched sci-fi BS, but basically because of McGuffin and her friends' like defect in their genetic code, they were born as good, not evil. So you don't like watching their brethren be killed by Mount Prowler and her lackeys whenever they mess up. And she also doesn't like the concept of the evil members of Substance Y trying to take over the world. So they basically turned on their creators and decided to not try to help them take over the world. So their creators wanted to kill them, and because of this, they fled to Atomicon, the moral world, because again, Paradise is its own dimension. So they fled to Atomicon. They were originally going to be sent back by Central Justice. They were originally going to be sent back by Central Justice, but upon proving themselves to be heroes, they were allowed to stay, which is basically what Substance SY 2.0 was getting at, even though I don't think it did it very well. And so now they're official heroes in the Versus Central Justice series. Oh, side note, Substance SYZ was originally going to be a longer series, but I decided to keep it 12 episodes because I wanted to really get to Operation Hybrid, the video game that came out afterwards, as well as I wanted to get to 3000. What did I think of 3000? I feel like it was my favorite of the trilogy. Again, I am working on a fourth film, which will make this series of films a quadrilogy. But as far as the trilogy goes, at the time being, I feel like it's my favorite of the films because of how lighthearted it is. Like, well, compared to the first two films, but also like aside from the wholesome demeanor, I feel like it's more fun. It plays into the sci-fi alien vibe more. I feel, which I think works for something that's why at least nowadays. And I love how I love how McGuffin and Z's dynamic works. I hopefully I'm able to like keep that going in versus Central Justice. I'm not exactly sure how I did it, and like, I'm not sure if it worked very well in the kickoff versus I'm not sure if it worked in the most dangerous video game, the special that was meant to kick off the second season of versus Central Justice. I'll let you viewers be the judge of that. If it worked very well, McGuffin and Z is dynamic, but overall 3000, aka Substance SY3, I feel like it works better than 2.0, aka Substance SY2. Overall, this was a behind the scenes of the Substance SY franchise. I know I didn't really go over the series. I feel like versus True Justice is kind of like self-explanatory in a sense of like it's a Saturday morning cartoon where good aliens battle and capture evil aliens, and Z was its own thing. And I'll let anyone who's interested in that like have that to go over for themselves. Overall, I covered the beta for what was going to be what was basically like a foundation for Plan B or the original trilogy of Substance Y games. Um, then we went over the films just now, which are basically like pilots for different arcs of versus Central Justice. Like the first Substance Y film was the pilot for the video games. 2.0 was like a pilot for to kick off versus Central Justice. Yeah, I would. Well, 3000 is basically like a 3000 came out after versus. I mean, it's wait. 3000 came out after Substance Y Z and Operation Hybrid, so it wasn't really a pilot for anything. It's more of a continuation, more of a wrap up for Z, the series, and I guess it kind of kicks off the second season of Versus Central Justice. So I guess that's what it did. But overall, I really love working on Substance Y. Um, by tomorrow, I want to work on a commentary for Julia Showmaking as well as Julian the Power Showmaking. But for right now, I hope you viewers enjoyed this. I don't know how long this video is gonna be. I'm just glad it actually let me record this at all, because sometimes my storage space doesn't allow for this. So I'm gonna wrap this up before something bad happens. But overall, I had a lot of fun working on this. So hope you viewers all enjoyed. Again, I'll try to get a Julius Jamaican commentary out by tomorrow. That being said, hope you all enjoyed. Peace out and take care, everyone.